Hey, welcome to another episode of Walkworthy. I'm here with my friend, Debra Fileta, and she's a licensed professional counselor, best-selling author. She's written 8 books. I feel like she's writing a book every 6 months, and they're all impactful. She speaks around the world. She's faith-forward. She's clinically informed. She is the host of Talk to Me, and she is a good friend. She had me on her podcast, and we had a great conversation. And we're here to talk about everything that you're doing, and specifically a book that you have coming out around people skills, about how maybe sometimes it's not that we are bad at relationships or we can't find the one, or, I just have a difficult time finding friends, or whatever that might look like. Maybe there's something broken within me that I haven't dealt with that causes me to see myself and others through a somewhat broken lens, but so glad for you to be here.
It's so good to be here with you, Josh. I can't wait to dig into this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think kind of just starting there, where does your heart for people, but specifically the church, obviously as a follower of Jesus, you want to equip the body in the way that is unique to your gifting and calling.
Yeah.
But where does your heart regarding, which I think is somewhat different than a probably well-known, definitely secular approach, where it's not that I am bad at relationships, or I just can't find the right person, or maybe I don't have the right skill set. There's something sublinear. There's something that I haven't dealt with. There's something I've suppressed. There's something that I haven't processed fully that is causing me to see reality with a skewed lens. Would you kind of just speak into that?
Yeah. Yeah. As a licensed counselor, but also as a Christ follower, I think this really matters, because so many times our own junk gets in the way. So many times we've got these pain points in the present that we're hitting up against over and over again, these cyclical struggles, whether it be relationship issues, whether it be addictions, whether it be pornography, whether it be alcohol, whether it be we have anger problems, and we're trying to deal with them superficially, but they just keep coming up again and again and again. And oftentimes the pain points in the present are actually rooted in unhealed areas from the past.
Mm.
And so my heart for the church is that God takes us deeper in our healing journey. And I feel like oftentimes when we come to Jesus, we invite him in and we say, Lord, heal me from this point forward.
Yeah.
Like, I want to walk with you. I want to live for you. And I believe he loves that. He loves that heart of repentance and change and transformation. But I believe that if we could hear him, he would say, yes, but I also want to heal you from this point back. Let's just do it all. I want to be invited into all of it. And so I think for me as a counselor, it's helping people with the pain points in the present, but also helping them trace some of these things from wounding from the past and invite God into all of it. Because at the end of the day, Josh, I really believe that God wants to take the church wider, especially this day and age.
Yeah.
But in order to do that, he needs to take us deeper in our own healing journey. So that's where my heart is for all of it.
Yeah. Not even just pornography, but something I tell people often is that in the depth of your confession, it's going to equate to the level of your healing. And what I mean by that is when we confess with an unguarded heart, with someone that we truly trust, with whether it be a counselor or a trusted friend, and we say all of it. It's in the processing of when I'm saying everything unguarded, I'm kind of pointing to, okay, there is an emotional connection to this behavior where if I just try to modify the behavior and I don't understand that the thing that's actually catalytic in me doing this thing that I don't want to do or I want to stop doing, I'll miss the fact that there's a pattern there. There's something that's been ingrained in my mind and in my soul and my body where when I feel something, I do something, and maybe I'm trying to cover up something because I don't want to deal with something.
Right. Right.
I think it's so countercultural because when I was, when I speak at conferences or whatever, and I tell people, well, like the problem with pornography has not nothing to do with sex, but not as much as you would think.
Exactly.
And I love what you're getting at here. And even with, we'll get to people skills, and I would love to even just touch on that. It's like the way in which you communicate. You communicate through a lens of how you see yourself and how you see God. I mean, that's why shame is so detrimental and destructive in our identity formation.
Right.
Would you just speak to what led you to write that book? And I would love, it's Soul Care is like, you've wrote a lot of great books, but Soul Care is my favorite.
Oh, I love to hear that.
I would love to touch on that as well. But just thinking about the way that we communicate, nonverbal communication, just us being healthy communicators, good communicators. Because when most people think people skills, health communication, it's like, can I say less or
Right.
like that?
Right.
What are we talking about?
Yeah, it's interesting because even people who think they have good people skills are looking at it through such a narrow lens.
Yeah.
Maybe they think, well, I'm good, I'm a good conversationalist. I'm extroverted. Maybe they look at it that way.
Yeah.
But that is just a fraction of having healthy people skills. It runs much deeper than that. And so much of it is based on our motivation. And so people skills, this new book actually is broken into 31 different mini chapters. And that just goes to show you, I probably could have written 100 chapters, but I narrowed it down to the 31 most needed skills that I'm seeing on a regular basis, that people struggle with and they don't even realize. And a lot of it is things we haven't been taught, especially in the church. Christians have not been taught how to engage with people well. If anything, growing up, maybe you learned to say please, say thank you, and maybe say sorry, and that doesn't get us through life. There's so much more that we need to learn. And I think if I had to narrow it down to 2 reasons why this matters, I would say reason number 1 is we live in such a tech-saturated culture. Like, think about how our people skills are being shaped in this generation, screens in front of our faces.
You add AI to that, and it makes it even worse.
Exactly. A constant stimulation, screens in front of our faces, where we used to have to go to the grocery store to buy groceries and you were forced to interact with someone. Now you just click a couple buttons and say, leave it at my door. And you don't even have to talk to the person, you don't even have to practice engagement with real life people. And I think we're just on the verge of dangerous. Like, if we think this is bad and we think, oh yeah, this generation is really struggling with their people skills because they barely have interpersonal relationships anymore. This is just the beginning. Like, we're just on the verge of how bad this is about to get. Look at social media. Look at how we engage with people online. So the tech issue is definitely impacting our people skills. So that's kind of one reason that I think this is important. But even deeper than that, I think we as the church are called to convey God's love. That's our job.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, because of our lack of people skills, God's love gets convoluted. It doesn't get conveyed in the proper way because our junk gets in the way and causes more damage to the world around us than good. We need to get good at figuring out how to convey God's love in the best way possible, because there's a lost and desperate world in need of this message. And I think of Paul in 1 Corinthians 9, when he says, I have become all things to all people, so that by all means possible, some might be saved. And to me, that's the epitome of people skills, learning to become all things to all people, because my goal is that some might be saved, and I don't want to get in the way of that. So
Yeah.
I really believe this is a message for the church to get better at taking ownership of how we're coming across.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so easy when the majority of your connectivity is online and you live life in that way where, you're doing pickup or delivery for groceries and all these things. I think it's really easy to drift towards apathy and not have empathy for people because there's this disconnectedness. Uh,
Yeah,
and I think that's, again, like, not to make this entire conversation about people struggling with pornography, but I think that when you consume that, you almost subconsciously, well, not almost, you subconsciously dehumanize people and you start to objectify people, and that
totally.
bleeds over into your real life. Like that's
And
why.
not just with pornography, but think about it. Even our online interactions.
Oh, sure.
I'm leaving a comment on someone's post that I disagree with, and all of a sudden I've objectified them as this message that I disagree with, rather than this human being that I need to learn how to engage with
Yeah.
and show God's love to.
Yeah. I think that's why it's so easy to, it's so easy to fall in a place where if someone disagrees with you, they must have strife towards you and you feel offended because they disagree with you, but you are disconnected from them as a person. So you don't see their intrinsic value. So you just see someone that is against you and you perceive that, maybe through fear, and that fear turns into anger. And it's so complicated. But I think, if I can't be self-aware
Right.
about what I have going on, maybe I'm living my life like this. Maybe I'm short with my wife at times, and it doesn't have anything to do with her. I
Right.
adore her. She's my favorite person in the world. But sometimes subconsciously, the people who are even closest to us that we do have relational equity with, sometimes
Exactly.
that equity because we're unaware of what we're feeling and we communicate through it.
In one of the chapters in People Skills, I talk about owning our triggers.
Mm,
And the fact that oftentimes when we feel this strong emotional response to someone, and usually it is the people closest to us, sometimes it's the random guy that cuts us off on our way to work.
right.
Like it happens in different contexts, but all of a sudden you feel this intense emotion. And in our culture today, we think that if someone triggers us or something triggers us, then they have issues and I just need to step back from them. I need
Right.
to get away from them. I need to cut them out of my life. I need to avoid them because they're triggering me. But really, a trigger is an emotional sore spot underneath the surface of our life. And that person may not have caused that sore spot, but
Sure.
they're pressing on it. Maybe that sore spot came from something different: rejection wounds, abandonment issues, fears, insecurities, inadequacies. And when somebody gets close and pushes on that button, we have a reaction. And that reaction is a sign that God is revealing something deeper that he wants to heal inside of me.
Yeah.
Like, maybe you've got some insecurity here, Deb, that you've got to deal with. Maybe you've got some abandonment issues. Maybe you're feeling inadequate and it's coming out. And I'm not saying that the person who hurt us or pushed on that button is off the hook.
Right.
But what I am saying is that the majority of the work happens inside of us. So people skills really takes us into ownership, insight, awareness, because we're the biggest part in the equation of a relationship. If you and I are engaging and our interactions are like a recipe, I can't change your ingredients no matter how hard I try. I can live my entire life trying to change your ingredients, but I cannot. I only have the power to change my ingredients, make them as high quality as I can, take out the bad ingredients, put in the good ingredients. And when I change my portion of the recipe, it changes the entire outcome.
Mm,
of the engagement, the interaction. And that's the power that we have. That's the authority. That's the responsibility that we have, is to own our portion, because it influences the entire equation. And so even if you're in an interaction with somebody that's not so healthy, you still have responsibility and a role in what you can do to change the whole dynamic.
yeah. There's something that I've heard you say, maybe not in association with this, but several times before. And, just like any good orator, I would say, as I've heard my friend Debra say, and then as I say, and as I always say, but, you talk about healthy people make healthy relationships.
Yeah, you got it.
When we're talking about a healthy person, how do we define a healthy person? How do I define myself? What equates to healthy? Like, what's the metric? What's the barometer? How can I know if I'm healthy?
Yeah. It's a tough question because there's so many aspects to health. But when I think about us becoming healthy and whole, I come back to the verse where the disciples asked Jesus, "What's the greatest commandment?" And
Mm,
he says, "Love your neighbor as you love yourself." So, first part of health is this equilibrium, this balance of honoring others, all while honoring what God has given me, who
yeah,
I am. And so there's this balance. That's part one. And then part two is love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. So I think heart is emotional
mm,
health, soul is spiritual health, mind is mental health, and strength is physical health.
yeah,
And bringing all of these different parts of who we are into alignment with who God calls us to be. Sometimes that requires taking inventory of each individual part. Let me take a look at my emotional health. How are my emotions? Am I driven by depression and anxiety? Do I react more than I want to? Do I have anger issues? Do I feel like my emotions control me, or I'm in control of my emotions? Do I have awareness? Mental health. What are my thoughts like? Are they negative, cynical, down, mean, jaded? Am I constantly looking at worst case scenarios, or do I have more positive, truthful, healthy, helpful thoughts? Soul, what's the state of my relationship in my spirit with God, self, and others? Taking inventory of that. Strength, how's my physical health?
yeah.
Do I take inventory of my body? And am I caring for this temple that God has given me with my nutrition, my hydration, my movement, my health? So health is such a big word,
Yeah.
but I think it means having awareness in each of these categories and being proactive and intentional in each of these areas. And when we see things come up, that we deal with them. Like, okay, where is this coming from? What do I need to do about it? That we have accountability in our life, that we're doing the work of healing. I've dedicated my whole career, every single one of my books, to helping people heal,
Yeah.
define healing, go deeper with their healing in all of these different parts. But it's tricky because it's not an easy answer, in that we really have to start by taking inventory in each of these areas and kind of seeing what God brings to our attention.
Would you say for someone that they're saying, okay, maybe I'm very healthy in a few of those areas, not so great, and the others, where do I start? Maybe journaling or sitting down with someone and downloading on a weekly basis. Like, what would you recommend for someone that's saying, hey, I hear what you're saying, and it's true, and I would love to grow in these areas?
So super simple thing to start with is take each of those areas: heart, soul, mind, and strength, emotional health, spiritual health, mental health, physical health, and give yourself a rating. Imagine 100% is, this is the best that I have ever been in this area, is the best that I can be. Give yourself a percentage in each one. How am I doing here? How am I doing in each area? And then the one with the lowest percentage, start there.
Okay.
If it's emotional health, start by reading books on emotional health. Maybe I would recommend one of my books called Reset,
Yeah.
and just really taking inventory of your emotional health. If it's physical health, start there. If it's a mental health, start there. And just take a bite-sized step in the right direction in the area that you feel the weakest, because you'll see the most difference faster if you start in the area that you're struggling. So that's just a simple exercise that you can do to kind of help you take inventory.
And I think that when you say reset, I think about how it's so easy because life is busy. It's like, man, I will start this once this season is over, or
I know.
as soon as I complete, X, Y, and Z, or I'll start, I'll eat better after I get through this, this block of travel, or we're going to start working on having a date night every month or every week, once this happens, or once our kids are out of the house. And would you just kind of confront the person that's probably that doesn't want to hear that? the person that's like, I'll do it down the road, because I think something that you would agree with. I see so many times where people that they have from an optical standpoint, they have a good marriage, a good life, plugged into church, doing all this stuff. But they're pouring out their kids, and then all of a sudden they're empty nesters, and they're looking at their significant other, and they're like, outside of serving our children and doing our job and living in the same house, who the heck are you?
Yeah. Because they haven't been keeping up, right?
Yeah.
They haven't been keeping close and keeping connected. And I think that's the key in us continuing on this journey of health in alignment with the Holy Spirit. How I see it is that sanctification and healing are synonyms.
Yeah.
Right? The more I become like Jesus, the more I move towards healing and wholeness. It's an active process.
Yeah.
And that's not something I want to put on the back burner.
Right.
When you think of it that way, it just feels weightier. Like, no, I'll become more like Jesus in a couple months. When it doesn't work like that. I'll become more like Jesus in my marriage, when in my parenting, when in my personal life, in the sin area of my life. It's much more weightier when we think of it as the process of sanctification requires this. And it's not a luxury. It's a necessity. And not only that, but the work of healing is hard.
Yeah.
It requires effort and energy, but living unhealed is way harder, and has way bigger impact that seeps into every part of our life, our parenting, our marriage, our careers, our ministry, our personal well-being and happiness and joy and living abundantly. It seeps into everything when we're unhealed. So in the long run, the investment is so logical when you look at it, like when you just look at it mathematically, doing the work as soon as I am able saves me heartache, saves me pain, saves me burden later. Yeah. And so seeing it like that, it's almost like, well, this makes so much sense. Like, I do need to start today, right now, the next hour. What can I do to be in alignment with the work of healing and sanctification?
Hey, real quick, if you've been telling yourself, I'll deal with this later, let this be your moment. If you want to live with integrity online and you're tired of fighting private battles in secret, Covenant Eyes can help. It's accountability software designed to bring transparency to your devices and support healthier choices, not just through willpower, but through trusted relationships. And right now, you can try Covenant Eyes with a 30-day free trial. Just use the link in the show notes or visit covenanteyes.com and use promo code AACC on screen to get your 30 days free. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be willing to take the next step. Covenant Eyes. Take the step into the light.
Yeah, it's almost, it makes me think of just overall health, but just our diet, in that if I am someone who, I'm guilty of this at times, where I consume way too much caffeine, not enough water. And it's like, well, I feel okay, but my body has, adapted to this level of not being as hydrated as I could be. So it's almost like you're sick, but you've just conformed to this, you've adapted to this level. But then if I
Right.
spend some time hydrating and minimizing how much caffeine I'm drinking, or, removing any kind of, artificial stuff to all of a sudden I'm like, wow, I feel really good. But the reality is I'm not significantly healthier. I'm just functioning in the way that I was designed to function. And it's like, wow, not only do I feel better, cognitively, I'm more sharp. I'm kinder. I have more resilience. Would you just speak to that? That there's that one area of your life that you've just adapted to, and it's impacting your people skills. It's impacting your leadership. It's impacting your marriage. And if you would just spend the time to change that one thing, there'd be an overarching effect on many things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that sometimes we get so accustomed to what's familiar
Mm,
over what's actually healthy. And what's familiar becomes our template.
mm,
Trauma becomes our template instead of truth, you
yeah,
know? This whole journey of healing is swapping out the template of trauma, tragedy for truth.
yeah,
And it's a subtle shift, living in alignment with God's spirit. And it's funny you mentioned that, because in one of my books, Soul Care, the quote, "It might not be a demon, you just might be dehydrated." But I want to apply that also to people skills. Sometimes we have this conflict, these hardships in relationships, this drama, these difficult, heavy things in relationships, and we automatically assume it's spiritual warfare. It's attack from
yeah,
the enemy, but it might not be. It
right.
might be your lack of people skills, your lack of awareness, your lack of ownership that's making you susceptible to this conflict, to these issues, to not having close relationships, to feeling like you're not coming across the way that you want to, or that you're being misunderstood time and time again. It might not be a spiritual attack. It might just be a lack of people skills. So I think putting these things in bite-sized practical lessons helps. I don't know if you know anything about my books, you'll know that I don't just write a book. I give you a plan.
Yeah, it's like a
At
guide.
the end,
Love it. Yeah.
at the end of every chapter of every single one of my books is journaling, reflection, homework, assignments, practical things that you can do to
Yeah.
start the healing journey. And I don't think it's just about reading, it's about actively doing the work
Awesome.
afterwards.
Yeah.
And honestly, it would save you so much money. I am such an advocate for counseling, obviously. But sometimes when people walk into my office and they haven't read any of my books or done any of the work, I'm like, you could have saved yourself so much money. We'll get to this stuff, but you could have done the work, the pre-work. There's so much you can do to
Yeah.
get from level A to level S,
Yeah.
before you even step in the door. Maybe you won't get to level Z, but you could do so much work for $10,
Yeah.
just by making some time and investing in these areas of your life. I think it makes a huge, huge, huge difference.
Yeah. And so with people skills, what are some of the big takeaways that obviously you're hoping to, for healed people to interact with people in Jesus' name,
Yeah.
in a healthy way. But when we're thinking about people skills, what is the big overarching objective of the book, and what are some of the things that you're hoping comes out of it?
I think that the overarching idea would be that we would become aware of how we come across
Mm,
in every area when it comes to how we relate to people. And through the 31 chapters, you'll be introduced to things like body language, vulnerability, triggers, shame, attachment styles, communication styles, levels of conversation, starting from the most superficial to the deepest. Like, do you know there's more than one type of conversation and communication style? And you might be comfortable in level 1 and you don't even know you're missing level 3 and 4 in your relationships, but that's why they're not going deeper. But you've never learned those things. It could be as simple as your tone and the way that you're talking. There's a whole section on apology and empathy and just making sure we have these skills that help us convey God's love better, but also starting to take inventory of where are things that I've learned and things I've been accustomed to in the past that I think is healthy, but it's actually not. It's just familiar. But when you align it to the template of what psychology and spirituality, God's word considers healthy, you realize I'm way off. I'm way off. Just because it's familiar doesn't mean it's healthy. So it brings you back into alignment and gives you an opportunity to really take ownership of how you're actually coming across.
That's so good.
Things nobody's told you, put it that way. Like, when's the last time you sat with a professional or even a friend and said, I want you to analyze my last year of interactions and tell me, give me feedback. How am I coming across? What am I doing that's good? What am I doing that's not good? Do I come across warm and friendly? Do I come across cool and aloof? Am I selfish? Am I an effective communicator? What's my body language like? Do I have good empathy? So I'm hoping it's almost like sitting down with a friend / counselor and having the opportunity to get some feedback.
Yeah, I'm excited about digging into it deeper. And I'm just thinking about, so when it comes to body language, what are some of the things that, because for example, hands in your pocket on stage, I've heard, if based on your personality and who you are, it could be okay. Then I've heard from other people, because that was something that, so Jonathan Baclute is someone who oversees a lot of the communication that I do, and he's a big proponent of not doing that.
Right.
And what's your thoughts on just things like that?
Yeah. So you'll learn about the concept of open body language versus closed body language. And this is actually something that they really hit home in counseling graduate school, because you don't realize that before you even open your mouth, you're communicating by how you look, by what you're wearing, by your facial expressions, your resting face. I'm sure you've heard that term lately come up, resting face, but a little bit more details about that. And taking ownership of what that looks like, being aware. The only people who've ever been asked to stand in front of a mirror and play out their facial expressions are usually actors and performers. Yeah. Preparing for what they're going to look like on stage.
That as a 12-year-old when we're with theater. So it's like, that's something that.
Exactly. But the average human being doesn't really take inventory of their facial expressions and what they look like when they are communicating, especially when there's an emotional aspect, when you're angry, when you're hurt, when you're feeling misunderstood, when you're trying to confront someone, when you're meeting someone for the first time. What do you look like? How do you act? What is your body language? So open body language is different than closed. Hands in pocket would be considered closed body language. Arms crossed would be considered closed body language. Eyes that are a little bit tighter would be considered closed body language, or lack of eye contact would be considered closed body language. So we go through like all the different aspects from the top of your head to the bottom of your toes of what's open body language versus closed body language, so that you can kind of start to see. And some people don't realize they're doing it because it's their way of self-protection. If they're feeling a little awkward, maybe they'll cross their arms or look at the floor because they're feeling awkward. They're feeling anxious. They're feeling insecure. But how it actually comes across is distant, uninterested. I don't really care about what you're saying. They don't know your intentions. And a theme over and over in people skills is that you cannot base your interactions on your intentions. People don't see your intentions.
Yeah,
they only see what's exuding from you. Yeah. And so forget your intentions. we excuse ourselves because we're like, oh, I have good intentions, but good intentions don't make for good people skills. So it's just taking inventory. That's just one fraction of the conversation, but just to give you an idea of what we're talking about with regards to taking ownership of all of these different aspects.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just so fascinated with all of that. And I have a question that my wife asked me to ask you.
Oh, let's hear it.
Okay, so when it comes to someone not being a confrontational person, my wife hates confrontation. What would you say to that person? That is there people who are by nature non-confrontational, or is that a learned behavior? Is that something that's something that she's in the process of working on?
Good for her.
Yeah. So what would you say to her question and to someone that maybe could resonate with that?
So nature versus nurture. We're always asking, is this nature? Is this how I was born? I think it's usually 80-20. I think 20% is you may have that personality underneath the surface, how you were born, your wiring, but 80% it's how you were trained, how you survived, how you were accustomed to living life through childhood and beyond.
Yeah.
And so there's a learned aspect to being confrontational. And here's how one thing I would tell her if she was sitting here, I would say there's 3 types of conflict styles.
Yeah.
There's aggressive, there's passive, and there's assertive. The 4th would be actually passive aggressive. So we'll say there's 4 styles.
Sure.
Aggressive means I am honoring my version of the story. Yeah. It's my version. You need to do it my way. And they can be over the top. Like, think about a small example is if you're at a restaurant, I write this in people skills to help people identify. If you're at a restaurant, your order comes out totally jacked up. It's not exactly what you wanted. What would you do? Some people might say, well, it depends how bad it is, but an aggressive person, it's like my version of the story. So I need you to fix this right now. Or there's going to be consequences. A passive person is only honoring your version of the story and not their version of the story. It's okay. The waiter's probably busy. He's got a lot going on. I understand the kitchen's a mess. It's no big deal. So they're honoring you, but they're not honoring themselves. Whereas an assertive person, I'm going to honor you in my kindness and my respect, but I need to also honor my version. So could you please do this differently? I'm going to honor both of us. Whereas interestingly enough, passive aggressive, I don't honor myself and I also don't honor you because I'm just like, you know what? I'm not going to say anything, so I'm not honoring myself, but I'm going to leave you a crappy tip or I'm going to be rude to you every time you come and come to my table because I'm annoyed that my meal wasn't right. So, but I'm not honoring your story and I'm not honoring mine either. So give your wife that outline because it just motivates you to realize that it is important to honor me while honoring you.
Yeah.
And I can do that. There is a confrontation can be honoring you and honoring me. And that's how it should be. Going back to love your neighbor as you love yourself. Jesus always gives us a balance in how we interact and relate to people. So just kind of keep that in your mind. And I feel like it'll really help her with her future engagements, interactions with people.
Yeah. It's interesting because the dynamic of that is that, so she was a gymnast her whole life, so you get penalized for the most fractional imperfection. She did that from, 5 until 20. And then, but she was a teacher and she had no problem, giving constructive criticism, having, conflict with, the children that she was, teaching. And she's great with me, but then there's just other aspects of her life where it's different. So there's almost like this level of comfort with it that she's just trying to figure out. But
and I bet when you grow up under the microscope of performance, you know how painful it feels to be called out. So you're careful because you assume that pain that others might feel when you dock a point. It's like, the pain and you don't want to cause the pain for someone else. So it almost takes a rewiring of how you define that in order to be able to just move forward and feel like you're actually benefiting people, benefiting the relationship. And there's a way to do it that actually is beneficial.
Yeah, because I think just people skills in general, it's so helpful to have, an external perspective, get some constructive
Totally
feedback in that way. But I think but some people only want that in certain areas of their life.
You're right.
Don't yes, give me all the feedback in the world in this area, but don't dare talk about this.
Right, especially stuff that's more personal. I think the closer it gets to me and my heart and who I am as a person, the harder it's going to feel. But I also think the healthier I am, the more I'm willing to receive it, because I want that refining process. The iron sharpens iron. Like, I want to get sharper. I want to get better. So the healthier we are, I think the easier it becomes to receive and give feedback. And also something else to remember, another chapter in people skills, I talk about who to accept feedback from and who not to, because that matters too. I'm not just an open door for feedback from anybody. And if you tell me something on the internet, there's a good chance I'm going to ignore you because you're not my people.
Yeah.
And just the closer people are and the more I trust them, the more I can receive feedback from them. So there's a spectrum too of who we receive from and who we decide not to.
Yeah. There's a great book that Darius Daniels wrote around friendship. Just how to understand that. If I give access of myself to everyone, then that's going to be super unhealthy for me. And then you're going to have unrealistic expectations. Then they're going to be frustrated with me. I'm going to be frustrated. I think in the same way, it's like people are going to give unwarranted, feedback or criticism. That's just the world that we live in, especially if we have visibility. But I think there's so much wisdom in that of, find someone that you have equity with, that you trust, that's your people, and ask the tough questions and be willing to receive those answers so that we can grow, so we can be whole, so we can be healthy. But I'm excited to dig into that. There's so many people that I know that would benefit greatly from this. And I'm excited that I get to hang out with you. So thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. And I always want to give room for just from one last word that maybe something God is teaching you, something that you've learned recently that you want to share, just anything you want to share with the audience, just one final word of wisdom.
Yeah. I think what comes to my mind right now is the idea that when God points something out, dysfunction, sin, struggles, it's not to shame us. It's to heal us, I think it's easy to feel ashamed, like, I can't believe I'm messing this up and I'm so dysfunctional, I'm so jacked up, and when am I going to get this right? But I want us to see it as He trusts us with healing. He trusts you when He points something out. So even as you're listening to this today, if you're feeling like, oh, there's something here, God is trusting you with healing. He's inviting you into healing. He doesn't want to shame you. He wants to heal you. And so bring it on, God, bring it on. Open our eyes to what's next, to the next layer that you want us to heal, because with each layer of healing, we are becoming more like Jesus. John 3:30, He must increase, I must decrease. So bring it on. Yeah. And that's my prayer for everyone who's listening.
Yeah, I would say to everything you're saying, like lean into it. Because even when you were saying that about the hands in the pockets, it's like, I felt like I could see, gigantic JP, like in, saying, don't put your hands in your pockets. It's like, man, I don't want to seem guarded. I love people so much, I want to connect with people so much. It's habitual. So it's almost like that feeling when someone's telling you you're doing something that
you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. I don't want to be wrong. I want to be, I take a lot of pride in my communication. I work really hard at it. I've been working really hard at it for 20 years. But I think it's like when someone in love calls something out and calls you up, getting your heart to a place where the offense doesn't overshadow the gift is so healthy. And I know
Right.
there's been times in my life where that wasn't the case, where someone was trying to help me, but I felt offended. But then I had to come back to them and say, hey, I didn't respond to that in the way that I should have. But thank you for sharing that. It just makes me think of the way that Craig Rochelle talks about anxiety, where it's like a check engine light. It's like
Yeah.
how I receive criticism or feedback or just acknowledging something that's off in me and how I respond to it. If I don't respond well to someone who loves me, it's saying something in good faith, that's an opportunity for me to say, hey, there's something, in my heart or soul or spirit that's off. Bring that to God, bring it to a counselor, is someone, and process that out loud, and you'll grow so much faster than just like feeling the pain and just being like, I don't want to deal with
Right.
that. So I'm just not.
Exactly. And let me just take a minute to say how truly proud I am of you. Anyone who knows about my podcast, it's on-air counseling sessions. It's called Talk to Me. And you came on to have an on-air counseling session where we kind of talked through some stuff from your past. But man, just watching you grow, heal, thrive, do the work publicly, like some of this work you're doing publicly,
Yeah.
is just such an inspiration, and God's clear anointing on your life as you move towards healing. And maybe now, and we're fine tuning it,
Yeah.
and it's still painful when we fine tune, but just to watch you become more like Jesus and to use your voice in the way that God has called you to use it is amazing. And I'm just so proud to watch your journey of healing on the sidelines. So just wanted to affirm what God is doing in your life.
Thank you so much. Well, I'm going to get off of here before you make me cry, but I receive it. And I thank you so much.
Hey, real quick, if you've been telling yourself, I'll deal with this later, let this be your moment. If you want to live with integrity online and you're tired of fighting private battles in secret, Covenant Eyes can help. It's accountability software designed to bring transparency to your devices and support healthier choices, not just through willpower, but through trusted relationships. And right now, you can try Covenant Eyes with a 30-day free trial. Just use the link in the show notes or visit covenanteyes.com and use promo code AACC on screen to get your 30 days free. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be willing to take the next step. Covenant Eyes. Take the step into the light.